Richard.
My goodness! Oh, he's done it!
Look at these two go.
Oh, he's going to do it! His first victory!
The World Championship is done. What a race it's been.
We are now back on schedule and readying ourselves for the race to the checkered flag of the season. And it's going to be a fantastic battle down to the wire, I am sure. It's been a road that's been well travelled and a road that is presently being led by Colin Spork, who is having an absolutely fantastic 2022. However, the last round was not his. Those honours went to the likes of Alex Siebel. Can Alex Siebel do it again? Will Spork return to the top? Or can someone else step it up into the mix? Join us again as we get ready to race for round 7 of the Formula SimRacing World Championship, brought to you by Masita Esports, 3D Wrap and SimLab, and of course, alongside our broadcast partners in VCO. I'm Lewis McGlade, and Ewan O'Leary is alongside for the broadcast here today. 53 laps, tricky circuit here to properly race around and get into the rhythm. Strategy is going to reign supreme around here, I have no doubt.
It certainly will. It certainly did in the Pro and Academy races a little bit earlier on. But what are we about to see here in the World Championship? I think a lot of excitement. We certainly had a lot of that a few weeks ago at the Matsusaka race. The Japanese Grand Prix absolutely delivered a classic for us. And it was a great race indeed. And I'm sure we've got 4 more coming up to round off this 2022 World Championship.
Yes, indeed. Of course, we wrap up here at the Italian Grand Prix before we head over to Daytona or Azure. Of course, that will be open up and sorted a bit later on. Then we head to the penultimate round of the season, the final one in August. So pretty decent wait before we get to the real meat of it at the end of the season. But it is going to be a tight and twisty fight into the championship, because of course Colin Spork is leading after 4 victories this season. The vote closes during the World Championship race for whether it's going to be Daytona or Azure. That is being held, of course, in the Formula SimRacing forum. So that's being dealt with by the competitors. We think it's quite important for the competitors to maybe have a chance to decide which way they want things to go.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. It's not something that's done too much, actually. A vote just between the drivers. A vote between fans is becoming quite popular, but letting the drivers actually choose where they want to go is not done all that commonly. But if I was a driver, I have to say it's like picking between, I don't know, hell and hell. Again, I don't know. It's they're 2 bad circuits.
Not a fan.
Not well. I wouldn't be a fan if I was a driver. I'm sure we're going to enjoy the race from the spectators' point of view, but purely because I don't have to drive it. So yeah. And there may well be drivers in a similar situation. To be honest, you definitely will not like every circuit that comes up on a World Championship calendar.
There is the championship standings at the moment. Colin Spork leading by 36 points over Alex Siebel, who won the previous race of the season. It still technically counts as round 3 of the championship, but it was the previous race we went racing for Alex Siebel. Noah Roivers in 3rd. Been a bit inconsistent this season. Had a couple of issues, of course, back in Belgium, and then the opening race of the season in San Marino. And then, of course, is Jan Wojnicki and Dennis Jordan. It's going to be an important qualifying session as we head on board with Alex Siebel into the Parabolica and out onto the start-finish straight as they launch their way there down into turn 1. And of course, they only have 3 laps in this qualifying session, and that's all they get to set whatever time they can.
Yeah, and Siebel has set a very good one to start things off. We're still waiting for some of the bigger names like Colin Spork to come across the line, although he's only 6th position in these opening laps. That is a big surprise for Colin Spork, but it's welcome news for Alex Siebel. If he wants to win this World Championship this year, he absolutely has to start gaining points, as he did last time around at the Japanese Grand Prix, gaining a 5-point margin over Spork by winning that race. Can he gain some more here today? Let's wait and see. A pole position would certainly be a good start.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, it's such a long run from the start. It's about half a kilometre from the actual starting point all the way down. It's probably even a bit further than that. I think it was about 700 metres last time I checked. All the way down to the first corner. It's such a long run, which means that if you start on pole, basically, I'm not too bothered whether it's pole or the front row. Just on the front row generally, that's where you want to start. You don't really want to be in that mid-pack. Here's Damian Skovron out of the final corner. Just 3 drivers yet to set a time in this session. Skovron being one of them. Sandor Callas not immediately too far back. Jake Dennehan not coming through the first sector. Great lap time from Damian Skovron to go 4,000ths clear of Janis Brakchuk up onto the front row of the grid.
Yeah, we haven't seen too much from Skovron as we were talking about last time around. We haven't seen too much of him so far this season, but that is a great qualifying performance and comfortably out-qualifying his teammate Michi Hoyer so far as Sandor Callas makes his way up towards the line. He obviously got involved in that incident towards the chicane at the Japanese Grand Prix. Was very disappointed about that because he was on for a fantastic result, but it wasn't meant to be. It's a 5th position for him in the first round of times, and as it completes itself, Dennis Jordan's down in 6th, but more importantly, Colin Spork is down in 8th. I can't even read. 8th place in the standings at this stage, and that is further down than we have seen him all season long, really.
Yeah, he did struggle in the opening stages of the qualifying at Matsusaka and ended up, to be fair, I think he only qualified in, where was it? I think he started
5th, 6th?
I think it was 6th, and he got damage. This is the thing, is he got damage on the race start because he was in the mid-pack, obviously a little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact on the run into the first corner, and he said that it was the wheel-to-wheel contact that he had there that got him some damage that effectively cost him the race victory. I know that's obviously so easy for drivers to say and do, but he was like, the strategy that Alex Siebel was running was very aggressive, and it was very risky. And it was a strategy that, had there not been any damage on Colin Spork's car, that there would have been the victory to Colin Spork. Now, sometimes we tend to just throw this out and be like, this is just drivers talking rubbish. I would tend to believe Colin Spork in that. We know that they really do put in the effort behind the scenes. Laurent Kiersmakers not improving on the lap that he's set previously in the session, currently down 10th spot. But look at Jan Wojnitzer, purple first sector, a couple of tenths faster than those around him, a 10th faster than Alex Siebel in the first sector alone.
Yeah, and he's just currently making his way towards the Ascari chicane. Kiersmakers just slightly improved there to 10th position, but here is Wojnitzer out of the chicane and down towards the final corner. Now we'll see what he can do in this final sector. Not a great middle sector there. He doesn't improve on his lap time. It's not a complete disaster, but it's still not an improvement on where he was. Little bit of a slide through the Parabolica, and now he'll be able to accelerate towards the line. Where is it going to be? Over the line, and he stays in 7th place.
Yeah, to be honest, he lost most of that in the final sector. Did see a couple of kicks of oversteer. It was a 25.966 in the final sector, which is 3 tenths slower than Alex Siebel, meaning had he nailed that final sector, there might well have been a pole time on the cards. What does Noah Roivers do? It's decent in the first and second sector, but again loses out with a 25.911 in that final sector, so it is still 4th. For the Flying Dutchman. Tom Oldermenger out of the final corner. He'll come straight into the pit lane. Still will count as one of his timed laps. They only have a few at hand. Again, they only have 3 timed laps to set. Robin Panzer up towards the line. The Swede moves himself up into 13th position, 6/10 off of pole.
Yeah, still very close in this qualifying session. I have to say the whole 17 cars, at least, of them, separated by less than 9 tenths of a second, with Victor Ivanov down there at 2nd place in the Pro Championship race only an hour ago. So he's very well practiced here as Callas comes back towards the line once again. But for the moment, no real improvements through those second round of times. Siebel couldn't improve, neither could any of the top 5 so far anyway, as Callas comes up towards the line now. I think Michi Hoyer was probably the highest placed driver to actually improve. He moves up to 8th, only 2 tenths off at the moment, but it just shows how much of this circuit you spend just full throttle doing basically nothing around here at Monza, because the times are so close. Nearly a top 10 separated by a quarter of a second there. It's outrageous.
But the thing is around here, when it comes to the DRS, when it comes to the time difference around here, whilst it looks like a very simple circuit, it is one that requires high commitment, mostly on the brakes. Now, when you speak to quite a lot of drivers in sim racing or even in motorsport and stuff about what is one of the hardest things about getting the time out of the car, it's the bravery on the brakes, being able to brake so much later than you think is possible, being able to roll off it at the right time to carry the speed in, but basically essentially trail brake slightly into the corner where you're essentially relieving some of the load in the pedal but keeping just a little bit on. You're scrubbing off the final couple of kilometers as you're bringing it into the apex and then rolling your way through the corner. That is so difficult, and it's so hard around here. And then when you have that dealt with in the first at the Rettifilio, then at the Rodger chicane, then you come up towards Ascari, which is hold your breath and fully commit for about 4 seconds as you pin it from apex to apex and bang it straight onto the backstretch. It is such a deceptively difficult track.
It really is. You're absolutely right. Despite the fact that the time gaps are very small around here, it doesn't mean that it is any less tricky, as Laurent Keersmakers just improve a little bit, but won't in the end. 11th place, his teammate Jake Dennehan also towards the line on his return. 13th position, just within half a second of Alex Siebel right now. But can anybody get near him? Jonas Brakshock, famously very good in qualifying, but not on this occasion in terms of getting onto that front row and getting yet another pole position in this career. He's told us at the end of the Japanese Grand Prix that, of course, that he's searching for that win here in 2022. He's not had one in the World Championship in his career just yet. He's still searching for it, and he looks like he's going to have to do it from third or worse on the grid.
Yeah, of course, for Brakshock, this was where he had his closest real chance of taking victory, when he was leading comfortably until the ACR Zach Speed duo of Martin Godsby and Jene Simicic fired up late in the session. Decent time from Zoltschutz to move or to keep 10th position, but look at Michi Hoyer, who's improving in that second sector. This is Victor Ivanov across the line, just up to 16th in the Unicorns of Love, and there is Michi Hoyer. Purple second sector, though, coming in from Alex Siebel, so they are improving in the late portion of this session. What does Michi Hoyer do across the line as he races his way up there? It is good enough to pole at the moment by just a single hundredth of a second, but what does Alex Siebel have left in the tank? Dennis Jordan crosses the line and remains in 6th position for the Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports team, but here is Alex Siebel pinning it all the way to the line. Is it going to be another pole for the number 13? It is indeed. Alex Siebel, by 0.02 of a second, moves back onto pole. Incredible scenes here, and Damian Skovron might throw a spanner into the works as well as he races his way up towards the line. He doesn't improve on the final lap, but what a super time from Alex Siebel and Michi Hoyer.
Goodness me, 0.02 of a second separating 1 and 2 in that qualifying session there, and some vintage Michi Hoyer form finally coming back to us pretty much for the first time since 2021, really. Let's hope that it will stay with us throughout this race as well. As we see over the line for Roberto Pignataro, he will not be able to improve, unfortunately, in that one, but Michi Hoyer is certainly back. Obviously, he has had one podium in 2022, but he hasn't had much, and this front row start gives him the perfect opportunity to maybe put that right.
Well, here's a look at the results from the qualifying session. Super stuff from Burst Esports to be second and third. Alex Siebel on pole position, though. Then Hoyer and Skovron, Brakshock and Roivers in 4th and 5th. Then we find Sander Callas, Dennis Jordan, Jan Wojnitzer, and your championship leader, Colin Spork, a 1/4 of a second off of pole, but 9th on the grid. He'll be alongside Zoltschutz as we roll our way down the order outside of the top 10, where things surprisingly remain incredibly close. Laurent Keersmakers, then Roberto Pignataro, Jake Dennehan, Robin Panzer, Ivan Leonov, Victor Ivanov, Danny Van Der Neet, and Tom Oldermenger just outside of 1 second from the pole time. It is incredibly close, as we would always expect in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. We love this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. A great qualifying session there. The closest margin we've had all season long, and a perhaps unexpected front row as well. Alex Siebel getting pole is not too much of a surprise, but Michi Hoyer being there is a great surprise, but in the best way possible, him being on the front row. And Damian Skovron as well, who's really improved throughout this season. He's up to 3rd with this performance there, and let's see what they can both do in the race. Burst Esports definitely back.
They really, really are. And when you think of the sort of semi-alliance between Oracle Red Bull Racing Esports and Burst Esports, where they do work quite close together, it's no surprise to see them moving all forwards, all together. And this could be a big day in the championship for them as we approach the end of the season. Just 4 rounds left to go. And you know what it's time for? We have it every single round, where we need to take a little look around this Monza circuit in the hands of Michi Hoyer.
Hello everyone, and welcome guys to the Formula Sim Racing 2022 Monza Grand Prix. I am delighted to take you around the Parco di Monza here in the Festival of Speed. Once again in the Formula Sim Racing 2022 series, going across the line, DRS wide open about now towards the best ultimate overtaking spot here in Monza. Extremely heavy on the brakes, into first gear even, going around the undercuts as good as you can. On the exit you can make use of the curve for maximum track width, and then long acceleration zone, and again a good overtaking spot into the second chicane. once again heavy on the brakes, once again going around these anti-cuts, and then we're approaching the Lesmo 1. The third, the fourth gear, right-hander, and Lesmo 2, the same thing once again. Both times the exit, pretty important, especially here as we're going into the second DRS zone, as you need to carry all the speed throughout the turns, and then to one of the most technical corners in the world, Ascari chicane. You sacrifice the first entry and line up through the second to have a blistering go through the third left king onto the back straight. Once again into 7th gear, into the high speed corner. Was formerly called Parabolica, it's now called something else, I don't know. Anyway, most important, you carry all the speed early on the throttle. So across the line, guys, that is one lap here around the Monza circuit.
Well, what a super qualifying session that was, and a brilliant pole position for Alex Siebel. He'll be alongside Michi Hoyer, who we thank to show us around this Monza circuit. It'll be a super race down towards the first corner, but Alex Siebel's looking for his second race win of the season. Michi Hoyer's looking for his first win of the year.
He really is, and only his second podium of the year as well. I was really hoping for a real title charge from him this season, but he's down in 11th, all but out of it, not mathematically, but pretty much is. And so, it would be really good to see him on the top step of the podium. It'd be great to see a Burst G-Sport car win, to be quite honest, because they've had a pretty poor season compared to where you would expect them to be, especially since they've won the team's championship for the last 2 years. They're only 4th in that standing right now. And they're going to be very disappointed with how this season has actually gone. So this might just revitalise everything for them in the final push to the end.
We know that their priorities really do lie, elsewhere outside of Formula Sim Racing World Championship at the moment. Obviously, a lot of pressure for them is being dealt with by keeping their eyes focused on the rFactor 2 Formula Pro Series. But this is the whole thing with the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. Despite it being Burst, taking part there, so does NetRec, so does quite a lot of other teams, a lot of other drivers. It's it's fierce out there, but it's also fierce in here, and it's where we kind of would expect Burst to be doing a little bit better with no Formula Pro round on at the moment. It's allowed them to focus a little bit more on the Formula Sim Racing World Championship to try and remount a bit of at least some form of challenge. I mean, for me, Damien Skovron's done a great job in that qualifying, and I would certainly not rule him out. I don't know if he's going to play a bit of rear gunner here to Michi Hoyer, or if he's just going to go all out on the attack and try and take his first victory at this level.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. We're talking about in the break there a little bit about what's going to happen during this race in terms of the strategy. Is it going to be one stopping or two stop? We do think that the one stop is going to be a bit of a stretch, due to the length of this race. However, there will be some aggressive two stoppers, you would imagine, and we'll see where they pan out in terms of making their way through the traffic and getting towards the front again.
I have heard, yes, there are a couple of teams out there that will definitely be going for a two-stop, going for something like a soft, medium, soft, or a soft, soft, medium. We'll have to wait and see as to where things are going to go. Oracle Rebel Racing Esports, though, on pole position as Alex Siebel takes to the front row alongside Michi Hoyer, Damien Skovron, and Janis Brakshok, who we know goes very well around here, the Hungarian. Behind that, we find Noah Roivers and then Sandar Callas. Dennis Jordan got demoted down to 7th in the final moments of that session, and Jan Vosnitzer inside the top 5 of the championship will roll off from 8th position before 4, we find the championship leader, Colin Spork, in just 9th position, ahead of Zoltsuch, Laurent Kiersmakers, and Roberto Pignataro for our Nage competition will start from 12th. In 13th position, Jake Denahan, alongside the Swede of Robin Panzer, who's had a couple of top 10s this season so far. Viktor Ivanov will line up just behind Ivan Leonov in 15th and 16th position, before we find the final row of the grid, row number 8, Danny van der Neet and Tom Oldenmenger for the Burst Simplexity eSports team. It's going to be a frantic fight, 53 laps around this Monza circuit, and we know it is always going to be a frantic fight. They're racing their way down onto the grid before they prepare themselves for the launch down towards turn 1, and it is the longest run to the start line, as far as I'm aware, longest run down towards turn 1 of the season. It is an incredibly large run. You cannot afford to have a bad start.
No, you can't. Matsusaka probably pushes it relatively close.
It's close. Yeah,
it's close.
Yeah.
Anyway, the last 2 races have been very important starts, we'll put it that way. And we saw, was it Dennis Jordan who got off to a slow start at the
Yes.
Matsusaka race? He dropped down the order from about 3rd to 5th or something, or maybe even worse. And so it really cost him throughout the rest of the race. He ended up finishing well outside of the top 10 once again. For the 3rd race in a row. So let's see what's going to happen over the next 53 laps here at Monza as the final few drivers get themselves into position.
Yeah, we'll hold fire on the tyre compounds, by the way, because as much as it says mediums and soft, rFactor 2 will sync this once the race has begun, so we don't know fully what tyres people are on at the moment, but I would expect a fairly mixed strategy. Strap yourselves in, though, as round 7 of the Formula SimRacing World Championship is about to get underway, as Alex Siebel will lead us away from pole position of the race down towards turn 1. Skovron's had a decent launch from 3rd as he's trying to drag it alongside his teammate. They're all running in the same order they've started in. Big launch on the brakes, though, from Noah Roivers, just trying to keep the Nage competition at bay. This is down in the mid-pack. Dennis Jordan's had a poor start once again, and Colin Spork has moved up a single spot into just 8th position as everyone starts pushing the button for push to pass.
Yeah, very clean start through turn 1 and 2 once again for the World Championship drivers here as well, as the dives down the inside begin from Jan Vosnitzer. Jan Braxok on the outside, and clatters over the curb. He will lose up more places surely as Colin Spork gets through on a slowing Sander Callas. So it's a great start for the championship leader. Dennis Jordan tries to follow Spork through on Callas. He doesn't decide to go for it there.
As he had to back out, those Zoltsuch nearly got ran into by Laurent Kiersmakers as they head into the second. There's a back up with our race leader of Alex Siebel. Mitchie Hoyer is right over the rear end as they cross the second sector split and head in to the Ascari chicane. I think the tyres should be correct now, which does suggest that Alex Siebel will be on the mediums, Mitchie Hoyer on the softs, Skovron and Noah Roivers also both on the mediums. The defensive line potentially going to be required here from Alex Siebel because Mitchie Hoyer is very, very close indeed as they head round the parabolica. A little bit of push to pass usage might give Mitchie Hoyer the race lead, but it's Skovron that used a little bit, it's Jan Vojnica that used a little bit, and it's the big slipstream from Mitchie Hoyer who's going to head to the right hand side and is going to take the lead here at the Italian Grand Prix.
And Siebel's just going to back off into the corner there to let him have that one. Not willing to fight this early on in the race. You do want to just keep things calm at this stage and fall in behind for the moment. He knows that his time will come in a couple of moments' time. But Dennis Jordan a little bit further back. His teammate not having such a good start. But it's a better start than these guys. A lot of body work down here.
Yeah, Tom Oldenmenger and Leonov as well having quite a few issues on that run to turn 1. We'll take a look at a replay, see what happens. As Oldenmenger looking to the inside of the net Rex. Big move as well from Roberto Pignataro, who made a little bit of contact. There was a cart backwards of Robin Panzer, and boom, Oldenmenger goes straight into the side. Let's take a look on board with Robin Panzer. You'll see him get spun out here a little bit on the final part. There's the big move to the inside from Roberto Pignataro, yes. That was a pretty big send from the Arnaz competition. You can see he's immediately waiting to try and give that position back, but a little bit late, really.
He didn't mean to go down the inside there. It was a misjudgment, really, in his defence of that place that led him to do that. He actually dropped behind everybody in that little train there, just because he felt bad, I think, more than anything else. And so that's unfortunate for him in a season that's not going particularly great. As we go back out to the start line again, Mitchie Hoyer is flying out there at the moment, 7/10 of a second ahead of the rest of the field as the two Netrex cars swap. Vosnitzer gets through on Roivers and Callas battles with Spork.
There was a big move back to the inside as well between the two of them as Roivers would try and get past Voznitzer once again. Like you say, back with Callas and Spork. This is Voznitzer who is in 4th position right now. But you can tell again as they spark their way around Curva Grande. Once again, Michi Hoyer, whilst he is leading, he is on the softer of the two compounds. Alex Siebel on the medium, same as Damian Skovron. And Jan Voznitzer, who's been working his way forward, is also running on the softer compound. I'm surprised that Colin Spork and Dennis Jordan, who both, like I say, they're not a million miles away in the champion. Dennis Jordan has dropped off a fair amount, to be fair, and Colin Spork being a champion leader, starting in the mid-pack, starting on the medium tyres, not the softs.
Yeah, there's a lot of differences going on at the moment, and that does explain a little bit Michi Hoyer's pace early on. It does explain Vosnitz's move here as well, Callas's as well, so to shake out. But today, Colin Spork's credibility as a championship contender is really going to be tested. He's going to be in the mid-pack, not for the first time this season. Obviously, we've seen that on Matsusaka, but for the most part, in these races, he's qualified inside the top 3 and he's finished inside the top 3. So this time around, he's really got to battle in the lower part of the top 10. He's really got to fight for this one, and we'll really see what he's got back in the pack today.
Well, DRS will be activated this lap, but Alex Siebel wasn't quite close enough. He certainly would be now, because Michi Hoyer made a bit of a mistake going through the Parabolica, but still the slipstream is more than strong enough to keep Alex Siebel right in the toe. It's a bit of a DRS train here at the moment. Janis Brackshot, though, has a 1.5 second gap backwards to Sander Callas, who's keeping Colin Spork and Dennis Jordan at bay. And the issue for Colin Spork in this is that if it's one big train all the way up to the race leader and you're 10th, 8th, whatever it is in pack, I wouldn't be too concerned. It's when a gap starts to form that you get a little bit desperate, you get a little bit hungry to try and make that move, because you're thinking that top 6, they are starting to pull away now, and that could be painful later on.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to keep an eye on, particularly the guys who are on his strategy at the moment. The likes of Roivers, Skrovron and Siebel are the ones he's really got to keep an eye on. So he's got to try and latch onto the back of Sander Callas the best he can here, and try and catch up to the back of the front group, which is starting to form really. It's a top 6, and they're all kind of drafting off each other, DRSing off each other, if that's a word. And Callas at the moment is trying to bridge that gap, and at the moment leaving Spork behind him.
They are indeed giving each other the big suck at the moment around Monza, as Hoyer is leading from Siebel, from Skovron, from Voznitzer and Roivers up the order. 2 Burst eSports inside the top 5, 2 Netrex P1 Sims inside the top 5. And here's Skovron with the DRS trying to get close to the rear end of Alex Siebel, who was having a cheeky look down the inside of Siebel, wasn't able to do it. I think Siebel's pretty content with sitting in 2nd position now. We know what the Oracle Rebel Racing eSports drivers are like when it comes to strategy, but here comes Dennis Jordan around the outside of Colin Spork. Now, not only has this been Dennis Jordan coming through, but I think it might well be the likes of Zolt Shoots for the ground effect team, also trying to pass the championship leader in that Unicorns of Love. That was a big defence there from Dennis Jordan, just trying to hang on, and Zolt Shoots has managed to get past Colin Spork as well.
He can't worry about that too much, Spork, but Dennis Jordan's playing teammate very well to Alex Siebel here. Let's not forget Spork and Siebel are championship rivals. Jordan's not going to spend his entire day getting in the way of Spork, but if he can take points off the Unicorns of Love driver, he absolutely will, not least for the team's championship as well. As we see a replay of the move here, it's a nice, simple DRS slipstream kind of affair into the first chicane. Zooks was even looking for the move on this occasion, but he had to wait until the Della Rodger until actually making the move on that occasion, and that is even more of a disaster for Spork than Jordan getting through. I know he's on soft tyres and a different strategy, but it still puts more distance between Spork and the front of the race.
The issue is that realistically, I mean, this is where it got a little bit dicey there, is Colin Spork couldn't really back out into the Rettifilio, because had he backed out there, he was going to lose the position to Zolt Shoots anyway, so he might as well have tried hanging on. Problem is they've lost another whole heap of time. It's a 2-second gap between what will now be Zolt Shoots, who's got past Dennis Jordan fairly easily, who does back out just a touch to make sure that he's not staying alongside going through the Rettifilio. There's about 2 seconds between the 2 ground effect teammates in 7th and 8th. Sander Callas in that 7th position ahead of Zolt Shoots.
Yeah, you can see Jordan there very close to the back of Zooks, just going around the Curva Grande. They're also trying to bridge this gap now to the front of the race, where Sander Callas has nearly made it, but he's still about half a second, 7/10 away from slipstream and the DRS. So he's got a bit of work to do still, and these guys have got even more work to do. As I said, it's not great news for Colin Spork, this. Poor qualifying and not getting off to a great start in the race. We'll see what strategy he employs, though, because, of course, he's getting this medium stint out of the way early on. How early is he going to be pitting in? Is he going to be going for a very long time?
think there is also one thing that we probably should speak of around now, whilst we are 6 laps into this 53-lap race, and we're all speaking of strategy and stuff. There is on the horizon some potential rain as well. So we'll keep our eye on the weather forecast and see if there is going to be any drops of wet weather hitting the circuit, because it is a potential around here, and drivers will need to factor that into their strategy big time if that is the case. Janis Brackstruck, by the way, did get past Noah Roivers coming down into the Parabolica, so there's been a switch of position there as we head up to the race lead. It's a burst eSports 1-2. Damian Skowron has been able to get past Alex Siebel.
Yeah, and Janis Brackstruck has been able to get through on Noah Roivers as well in the recent past, as Brackstruck is now into 5th position, but Siebel won't be too concerned. He'll just try and keep those behind. He'd probably rather that Skowron stayed behind him, but there's not a lot he could have done about that. Hoyer now certainly stopped beginning to get away in this race, and we'll see how far he goes on those tyres. Obviously, we're early on into this race, but we're yet to see how far these guys can actually go. If anybody's going to go for the 1-stop, who's going to go on an aggressive 2-stop, it's all to be figured out over the next laps.
Yeah, and Jan Wojnicki could do. Whilst Dennis Jordan's been doing things for his teammate, for the Oracle Rebel Racing eSports teammate of the championship, of course, Alex Siebel. To be fair, Jan Wojnicki could do something for at least the sister teammate here of Colin Sport by trying to force that move, by trying to get past Alex Siebel, dropping down the order just a little bit to try and, again, alleviate some of the points gap. Big defence in the background. As well, that'll be Zolt's Shoots just trying to keep Dennis Jordan at bay as they run down into the Parabolica, but obviously not close enough, more so to break the slipstream more so than anything else. Speaking of breaking slipstream, breaking DRS, Michi Hoyer has 1.1 seconds over his teammate Damian Skowron, which means there is no DRS to the head of that train from 2nd position.
Now the gap now in Formula Sim Racing, you have to be within 7/10 of a second now to be able to get that DRS. It's not quite as big of a gap as it is in real life and as it used to be, because passing would just be too easy, and so that has been limited just a little bit. But those behind certainly are very much in the window at the moment. Skowron, Siebel and Wojnicki and Brackstruck as well. They're all involved in that DRS train, and there they are. Noah Roivers, interestingly, has lost the back of this train, so despite the fact that it's being led by Siebel and Skowron, who are both medium tyre runners, Noah Roivers can't quite hack the pace at this stage.
Well, I will say, the strategy, obviously all these drivers and teams tend to have some people at least in their rear to some degree, just trying to guide them a little bit strategically. That Cam Rodger's been eyeing up at least some parts of Michi Hoyer, keeping him calmer, keeping him in the race. Adam Rainey, who is not racing this round, courtesy of some pedal failures, is on the pit wall for the P1 Sim Netrex team. Obviously, normally he races for the Netrex Grand Prix team, which Danny Van Der Neat and Ivan Leonov are presently racing in, but he's, whilst he's stepped aside, might as well jump into at least assist the team in some degree, and that will be to the ears of Jan Wojnicki and Noah Roivers, who are presently running in 4th and 6th position as they're trying to find their way up the order just a little bit, the highest placed of the entire Netrex contingent, who aren't going quite as strong around here as we've seen them run in previous rounds of the 2022 Formula Sim Racing World Championship. Of course, it's the Netrex Grand Prix, Netrex P1 Sim and Unicorns Love are effectively all a part of the same team, as well as Edge, also kind of a little bit a part of that contingent as well.
Yeah, it's all a bit of, they all do share a bit of information between those teams, so that's making everybody else's life quite difficult, and why Netrex have been so strong this season as it happened towards the back end of 2021, and they've taken it into 2022 with full steam. Of course, they're leading, Unicorns of Love, I should say, are leading the team's championship at the moment. Red Bull trying to take that off them right now, and Dennis Jordan and Alex Siebel probably would actually retake that particular position, with Spork and Ivanov not having particularly strong performances at this stage, but it is early on in this one. I have to say, towards the start of the Matsusaka race, I didn't think Spork was going to get very far up the grid by the end, but he finished in 2nd and could have won. So who knows what today's race brings for him, despite his lowly position at this stage.
Well, of course, the issues for Unicorns of Love when it comes to their challenge in the Teams Championship more so comes from a lack of consistency on the second driver. And that's not me saying that, like, the second driver has just been total rubbish and has been dropping it. No, it's the fact that they've had a bit of a revolving door courtesy of some unfortunate medical issues for Carlos Martin, who's originally slated to be in that car. It's Sander Callas making the move on Noah Roivers and moves his way up into 6th position. So a decent move there from Callas. But yeah, it's the consistency of that driver. It's always sort of like a reserve driver who's kind of in that role. They've done very well, don't get me wrong, but it's not as if it's the lineup of Alex Siegel and Dennis Jordan who are here with relentless consistency. There's been a big swap around in that Unicorns of Love camp, just trying to keep at least a decent second driver in the camp. It kind of makes you wonder what else they can really throw at it if they are to win the team's championship in 2022.
Yeah, I can't see them winning it overall. I think they've been massively helped by Dennis Jordan not scoring many points for the last 3 races. He's not been inside the top 10 since the British Grand Prix all those weeks ago now. So it's been a very long time for Dennis Jordan, and his furthest amount of time spent outside the top 10 in races. Anyway, that's from last race, if you can't remember. Anyway, it's Jordan back inside the top 10 now, though, thankfully. And the Unicorns of Love cars are. Well, one of them is, but one of them not, I'm afraid. It is a real shame, though, for Carlos Martin, as you mentioned there, because he's probably the most experienced driver in terms of races and years in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. He probably is the most experienced driver on this grid. I can't see anybody else who's been here for longer in terms of when they first made their debut, back in 2013 for Martin now.
Oh, you've taken shots at me. To be fair, I don't even remember what I said.
No, of course you don't.
This broadcast, so what I said a few weeks ago, absolutely no idea. When it comes to most experienced drivers on the grid, I'm pretty sure it would be Carlos Martin. Of course, he made his world champion. Did he make his world champion debut in 2013 as well?
Yeah.
Really?
Let me check World Championship, but certainly FSR.
He certainly started because it was World Trophy. Back then it was World Trophy, World Series and World Championship. World Trophy being the lowest, then Series, then Championship. Of course, what is now Academy, Pro, and then the World Championship. But yeah, it's all because, of course, Cam Rodger has pointed out Danny Van Den Eet is on the grid, which is a very good shout because Danny Van Den Eet has been on the grid for a long time. Laurent Kiersmakers did some racing and sim racing back in the earlier 2010s. But the thing is, he left sim racing for a very, very long time and then kind of came back. So I almost don't necessarily count him. Whereas like Danny Van Den Eet, Carlos Martin, etc., have been in sim racing and in FSR for kind of like basically the entire period since they started racing. Yeah,
absolutely. Martin did indeed start the World Championship in 2013. That is indeed.
Really?
He did really, yeah. 10th season, I think 10th consecutive season, quite possibly as well. He's been here for a very long time, very consistently, as you say. You are right, Cam is right that Lauren Kears, and you are right as well. Kiersmakers did start earlier, back in 2008 he made his World Championship debut, all those years ago. However, he did take a 10-year hiatus from the championship between 2012 and this season, when he finally returned. Danny Van Den Eet was also 2013, along with Carlos Martin.
Oh, there we go. Roberto Pinataro has not had some good luck this round because he's had a couple of issues and boom into the barrier. That's why he was driving into Ascari with a fair amount of lock on already. So clearly some suspension damage heading the way of Pinataro. We're having a little bit of a replay fiesta on board with Pinataro. A couple of issues as he'll return his way down into pit lane to hopefully get some of that car repaired. I think he might have... actually, no, still he got it repaired, so he was back out in a second. I was wondering if he was going to pull into his garage.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see a retirement for that car. Unfortunately, Pinataro, as I mentioned earlier, has not had the dream season, I'm afraid. He's not finished better than 15th yet in this championship, and I don't think that is going to change today by the looks of things, as those soft tyres of Zux, I should say, the other ground effect car, they're just starting to waver and fall off a little bit. Dennis Jordan and Colin Spork's medium tyres starting to come to the fore just a little bit. How far is Zux going to be able to take these tyres? I suspect not too much further, and we may well see a two-stop from at least one of the ground effect cars, maybe both.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole thing, is we're kind of 50-50 on who's going to be running what on strategy. Dennis Jordan is working his way up now into 8th position. It's going to be instantly sent back, though, from Zolt Shoot. He's had to cover off Colin Spork. He's trying to get around the outside of the Retafilio. It's going to be so close. There is contact between the two. Has nearly spun around there with Zolt Shoot. I'd have to say, though, if I'm perfectly honest, I think Zolt Shoot might have pinched Colin Spork a little bit too much, and that is what instigated the contact. So I don't necessarily blame Colin Spork for going through and trying to hang on to 9th position.
Yeah, I think he was squeezed there at the second part of that first chicane, so I don't think he did anything wrong, really. We'll get another look here to really confirm it, but it was great opportunistic driving, by the way, from Spork. He really saw what was going to happen there. Zux tried to duck back to the inside. Spork read it like a book, and he went straight round the outside. He's on the curb on the left-hand side here. I don't see what else Colin Spork can do.
Yeah, it's tight. There is a decent amount of room left, I will say.
I don't think anybody did anything wrong there. Nobody deserved a penalty. It's
racing.
Just a bit of racing, which is what we're here for.
But I mean, to be fair, if anyone was catching some of the British touring cars earlier on today, which I didn't catch, but I have seen enough clips of, and some of the stuff this season, that is rubbing as racing. That is a British touring car-esque sort of little battle there. But it was a little bit too much. I don't think it's a penalty either way. I just think it was a little bit touch and go both ways. Colin Spork was up on the curb, was being pushed off a little bit because that's just how the curb works. There was enough room being left, but it's that whole thing of like you've got to leave a car width to the white line, and realistically what it actually is you've got to leave a car width and a little bit more, because cars move, they bounce, they bump. You can't just leave an exact car width, because you're just going to have a massive crash. And then you have the net code and stuff to be brought into it as well. You're asking for trouble. Noah Roivers has been into the pit lane for the NetRex P1 Sim Grand Prix, so confirming that is definitely a two-stopper.
Yeah, it has to be a two-stop because he's on soft tyres anyway, so he's got to make two stops. Well, he actually started on the mediums, didn't he? Didn't he start on the mediums? I swear he did in this race. So why on earth is he in after only 13 laps after being on the mediums?
He did start on the mediums, yes, indeed.
So, yeah, I know 20 laps is possible on the soft tyres, but why would you put yourself through that when it's possible to not do that?
Because the soft tyres will still be fast at the end of their stint, so you'd want to take soft. Realistically, I mean, it should be. It's not the highest tyre wear circuit in the world. We'd have to ask Cameron Rodger on that one.
Yeah, I'm looking at Zoltzuks though at the moment, and we're 14 laps in right now. He is not faster than the medium tyre runners at 14 laps. God knows 20.
Well, we are going to see both of them commit. Oh, no, never mind. I thought Jan Vrijsnets was coming to the pit lane. Never mind. Well, I'll cancel that one straight away. We do see, though, in the background, I think it was Zoltzuks and coming in, or Sander Callas, rather, coming into the pit lane.
Yep, it's a two-stop strategy for the Ground Effect Sim Racing team then, or at least the one of them. And Colin Sport can't get away from Zoltzuks. He cannot hang on to the back of Dennis Jordan either. And so Sport gets overtaken back down to 8th. Worrying times for the championship leader. Siebel will be licking his lips and rubbing his hands together if he can if he actually knows what's happening back here, because this is a huge opportunity to gain big points in the championship battle.
Now, I wonder if this does also come down. We'll see if there's going to be a big dive here from Colin Spork. The answer to the question is no, but that bit of contact between the two of them, it wasn't heavy, but it can be enough to damage the car slightly. The problem is when you get damage to the car, it does slow you down in a straight line. It slows your exit onto the straights. It slows your just general straight line speed down ever so slightly. So I wonder if that might also play its part as a bit of a hindrance for Colin Spork later on in the race. Noah Roivers takes an awful lot of curb into the Rodger. He is behind Sander Callas. Is that position gain? No, they were this way around.
Were they?
I'm
not convinced. I think Callas was behind Brexock, and I'm pretty sure that is a change. As we've got a change for the lead, there's no doubt about this. Mitchy Hoyer gets overtaken by his younger teammate Damien Scrovron, and into the pit lane will come Mitchy Hoyer on a two-stop strategy.
Yeah, and that kind of backs exactly what you were saying earlier. As much as the soft tyres can realistically go to the 20 laps, they aren't looking fast comparatively to the mediums later on. I mean, look at the medium tyres there that we've got here on Damien Scovron. They're not exactly looking clean and fresh. They were looking pretty ropey, same as the ones that Mitchy Hoyer dropped off. Jan Vrijsnets are also into the pit lane. I wonder if there's been talk this is more favoured to be a one-stop race. I wonder if that, obviously, as it will change bit by bit as the race goes on, just because of temperature difference and how hard you're racing and what you're battling in. I wonder if that has gone out of the window a little bit as Noah Roivers here gets past Sander Callas and up into 12th position.
That's soft tyres versus medium, and not a big surprise particularly. But Zoltzuks has been off the road somewhere, by the way. He was running in that position just ahead of Colin Spork. I hope there wasn't contact between the two of them, but Zooks was definitely off on the exit of the Parabolica, the final corner at this circuit, which I didn't know before, but apparently has been renamed. I didn't know about that, but apparently it has. So there we are, but I'll keep calling it the old one for now, for old time's sake. But Zooks has definitely been off. 15th position for him now, and he's well off the back of the field.
Kind of, I mean, it's one of those circuits where you can make quite a substantial error. There is more than one location where we'd expect it. You know, there are some circuits where you're kind of like, oh yeah, someone's been off. It's probably down in like the Degners or whatever. No, around here there is so many options. This is coming down into the Parabolica. Is going to be too much power put on? Certainly is. Overcorrects ever so slightly.
Wow.
Oh my goodness me! Wow, that was close. And boom, there was a lot of damage on the rear end of that car.
Yeah, Colin Sport would have seen that championship flash before his eyes there, because that was good avoiding driving from him. Zooks was out of control a long way through that corner, as you said. Just picking up that power a little bit too early, getting all out of shape, and very nearly collected our championship leader. Here it is on board. This is very quick reactions from the Dutchman. Just, oh, look at that wiggle there, and he's so close. Oh, my goodness.
It was. I mean, to be fair, Colin Spook will be sat on the car being like, thank goodness for that. Right, let's get on with that. But yeah, in the moment, it is just sort of, you're watching the car spin, and as he's caught it, he's coming back over to the right-hand side, which was the trajectory that he was going on, because he obviously hit the wall on the right-hand side of the circuit, which was where Colin Spook was trying to sneak his way past. When you're sat behind it, you're basically hoping that they go one way and just basically, in a sense, commit to going in one way, so then it's predictable. It's so hard to predict what's going to happen to the car ahead, and it's why you see some of these really awkward, painfully slow crashes where someone drives into the car ahead, because it's so hard to predict where they're going to go. Either way, Jan Wojnitsa is able to get past Danny van der Neet as he's closing down on Michi Hoyer, your previous race leader before the pit lane sequence. Of course, he did just get passed by Damian Skobron, but then darted straight into the pit lane.
Interesting to see that Jake Delahan and Lauren Keersmakers here are still out there on the soft tyres. Are they stretching this to make it a one-stop? Well, they might be about to...
Nope.
Say no. They only go 18 laps on this one, 55 on mediums. I wouldn't want to that way at this stage. Jake Delahan will surely be in on the next lap. That's actually the end of lap 17, isn't it, for Keersmakers? They're a little bit behind as Hoyer gets through on Victor Ivanov round the outside. At turn 1.
Yeah, Ivanov was not able to do anything, and I don't think Ivanov will particularly fight Jan Wojnitsa very hard. Wojnitsa did just have a bit of a moment departing the Rettifilio. There is Laurent Keersmakers out of the pit lane, just ahead of the Swede of Robin Panzer for 13th position. We're in the pit lane sequence. Of course, Skovron, Siebel, Jordan, Spork, Denahan, not pitted yet, continuing to circulate. But the lap time difference, just to give you an update, Damian Skovron's doing a 23.3, Siebel and Jordan, both 23.3s as well. Those that have been through the pit lane, the likes of Michi Hoyer, 22.1 on the previous lap, supposing in a fair margin as Victor Ivanov is going to get passed here by Jan Wojnitsa, and predictably, that was not a particularly difficult move, nor was it for Noah Roivers to get past Danny van der Neet. I'm shocked.
No, it's not exactly a big shock at this stage of the race. What is, though, is the fact that Braxtock has lost so much time in that pit stop cycle. He stayed out the longest of those soft tyre runners who have already pitted, and so he did get undercut quite badly there. Roivers and Callas are in front of him now, Vosnica as well. So Braxtock's going to be kicking himself a little bit, but he will have fresher tyres for the remainder of this race, and he'll be able to push that little bit more, so we'll see what he can do with it as the Arnold competition driver makes his way down the inside of Callas. I'm trying to predict the future. He's not going to do it because Callas is making a move on van der Neet. Braxtock round the outside, but he knows that he'll just get squeezed into turn 2.
And van der Neet on a different strategy than these two, so that was quite an important move for Sander Callas to do, to try and keep on the coattails of Noah Roivers, but wasn't able to do so, and so now there will be a gap built there. And does Sander Callas, who is burning quite a lot of push to pass, he used a bit into the Rettifilio, he's using quite a lot up into the Rodger, and Danny van der Neet doesn't fight him there, in a little bit too deep with Sander Callas, and now van der Neet might fight his way back coming into the Lesmos, but no, it is Sander Callas up into 9th position now, van der Neet and then Braxtock in this battle. But again, Callas and Braxtock both have taken fresh tyres very recently, and Danny van der Neet is on the same tyres that he started this race on.
Yeah, who knows what he's doing with strategy, but it's going to be difficult for him from here, already being a pit stop behind the leaders at this stage, as Noah Roivers also has to make his way through on Victor Ivanov. We'll probably wait until the main straight, in all honesty, as Damian Skobron comes in from the lead of this race. Medium tyres after only 20 laps, only 19 laps even. This will be a two-stop strategy from both Burst eSport cars by the looks of it.
Which is not what we were expecting coming in. I was expecting a lot more to attempt the one-stop strategy. Here's now Roivers on the rear end of Colin Spork. Spork yet to... sorry, it wasn't Colin Spork, that was Victor Ivanov. I was just reading the rear plate there, as there is the tight squeeze from Skovron departing the pit lane, and that is the move for Noah Roivers past Victor Ivanov.
Skovron's been undercut quite badly there. I know he's already got his medium tyre stint out of the way, so that kind of negates it. Really? My word, that was close. It's still quite close. A big squeeze through the Curva Grande from Ivanov on Skovron. He won't have appreciated that, will the Burst T-Sport driver, but he'll make his way through anyway. 2 soft tyre stints coming up for him for the remainder of this race. It will be 2 17-lap soft tyre stints as well, which is fairly on the long side. However, he will have dramatic pace throughout the remainder of this, and he'll be catching up to his teammate throughout this first stint at the very least.
That was very, very tight from Skovron, who is going to fight straight back to get to the inside of Noah Roivers as they race their way up the hill into Ascari. The two of them were separated by nothing going through Curva Grande and Skowron back up into 6th position. I mean, that was the example of it basically being a car width and very little else, maybe the width of a pie between them and an extra car width before they reached the white line on the curb. So it was incredibly tight there, but Skowron just about giving enough room as Alex Siebel, your race leader, comes into the pit lane, passing over to his Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports teammate, Dennis Jordan.
Yeah, are Red Bull going to split the strategies, though? He said to me earlier on, I'm not sure if I should say this, but I'll say it anyway. Dennis Jordan might well go for this one-stop strategy. Will he go for that while Siebel does the other thing? As out of the pit lane comes the teammate of Jordan. 7th place, he gets in front of Breckstock there, which is very impressive to stay in front there. He stayed in front of Callas as well, who's got to keep an eye on. Now Siebel has got to catch up to the likes of Roivers, Skowron, Vosnica and Hoyer to try and get further back towards the front of the race. Also, what is Connor Sport going to do in his strategy throughout this race? We've not really worked out what he's going to do yet.
No, I will say though, Alex Siebel did lose 2 seconds to Dennis Skowron. Bearing in mind he was right on the rear end of Skowron, he's lost 2 seconds. That is how powerful the undercut is because of how fast the tyres are wearing around. There's still good 23.3s from Dennis Jordan at the moment, 23.7s for Colin Spork. He's dropping right back into the clutches of Mitchie Hoyer, who's looking for another win in the Formula SimRacing World Championship, whilst his teammate is trying to battle it out with Jan Wojnitzer and is now back up into 4th. On the road, once pit stops are completed, this will actually turn out to be a Burst eSports 1-2 at the moment. What it will be at the checkered flag, though, I have no idea. The joys of a Formula SimRacing World Championship race is that the strategy is wide open and we have no idea how these are going to unfold. But there is Mitchie Hoyer heading out of the Parabolica onto the start-finish straight once again as he'll race his way down the kilometre and a bit run down towards the first corner once again. And Mitchie Hoyer will end up becoming your race leader once Dennis Jordan and Colin Sport enter the pit lane as Jan Wojnitzer is closing back in the Skowron.
Here it is. He's on the medium tyres, of course, so he's got to wait a little while for Skowron to really fall away before he can really start attacking again. He'll probably be overtaken by Roivers and Siebel before that actually happens as well. So a long stint coming up for Vosnica where he's going to be looking behind him more than forwards, you'd imagine. But later on, he will be able to go back on the attack and put those soft tyres back on. But it seems that almost nobody is attempting this one-stop strategy. Still got question marks over Jordan and Spork here in this race. But we need to see Jordan go at least another 10 laps on these medium tyres before we really put him into that one-stop realm.
Skowron's closed in an awful lot on his teammate on the previous lap as well. So at the fastest lap of the race in a 21.7. Interestingly enough, Mitchie Hoyer's last lap did not count, which means that he exceeded track limits on that. Not too many places where you can really violate track limits. I think on the exit of Ascari, you can just about get away with it. I'm not really sure where else outside that, other than skipping one of the chicanes, which you can do so. Apparently, it was the last corner. We have seen him run wide at Parabolica before as well. So maybe Mitchie Hoyer already picking up a couple of those track cuts. He might well be getting fairly close to receiving an in-game penalty for exceeding track limits, which could be ill-afforded around a circuit like this.
Oh, well, any FSR race, really, you cannot afford to make an extra trip down pit lane, especially if you're not gaining any new tyres from it. So that's going to be detrimental to Hoyer's race if indeed that does end up happening. But I have to say, the gap between the mediums and softs in terms of pace is still a little bit smaller than I was expecting. I thought Roivers and Siebel would be past Vosnica by now, or at least approaching to get through. But then really still got those last few car lengths to close in on. And Siebel's not going to be particularly pleased about that, because as you referenced a moment ago, Skowron completely undercut him there, and he's got real distance on him already.
Well, I mean, the thing with Sport and his sort of differing strategy right now, in that second position as he is being closed in on by Mitchie Hoyer, as saying, I will say, I think he's trying something different here because he's struggled in the qualifying session. He started from 9th position. He's worked his way up towards the race. He probably won't actually end up leading this race. I think he might pit, even if he doesn't pit. Dennis Jordan is going to hold on to the race lead. Mitchie Hoyer is surely going to get past fairly soon. Here's Alex Siebel getting past Noah Roivers for 6th position, straight down to the inside. No DRS assistance here on the backstretch into the Parabolica, and Alex Siebel up into 6th position. Bit of a moment there as well. But Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports up into 6th place and closing in on Jan Wojnitzer and Damian Skowron, who's closing in on Mitchie Hoyer as well. Hoyer does get past Colin Spork, so definitely going to be no lap led from the Dutchman, at least yet.
No, not at this stage in the race. It's hard to see where he would lead one, as we're going to see a bit of a replay of that now. It's going to be a simple DRS pass by the looks of things. Be interested to know how much Spork defended. And the answer is actually undefended there, or whatever the opposite word is, because he just pulled to the left there and made sure that Hoyer went through. Bit of a lock-up from the German into the first corner, but he pulled it up in time and he's back in second place in the net race lead. But will he be able to take this race victory for the first time in over a year in the World Championship?
Which is just madness. I think, of course, it's not been a great 2022 for Michi Hoyer, not only in terms of how things have gone in the Formula SimRacing World Championship, but also, life and stuff. He's obviously struggled with COVID a little bit, and it did remove some of his rhythm from him. Of course, it affects everyone slightly differently, and affected him, he said, mentally more so than basically anything else. He really felt horrible mentally. He couldn't keep focus. That's why he stopped racing a little bit. So it's good to see that potentially we're seeing full Michi Hoyer back on the scene here in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. Alex Siebel close to the rear end of Jan Wojnicki and is not able to get through into the Parabolica, running on those softer tyres, but taking a very wide line all the way around the outside, as if he was using a banking at Bristol to drag him all the way up to the rear end of Wojnicki, straight alongside with a bit of assistance from the DRS. As we head down towards the rectifier, the Oracle Rebel Racing eSports driver Alex Siebel, we up into 5th position.
Yep, indeed, and we'll soon be up to 4th because Colin Spork is moving backwards at a fair rate here for Unicorns of Love. Damian Scravron has now got through, and it's great to see both Burst, not only for Burst Esport as the team, but Damian Scravron as well, who we kept speaking about, was brought on throughout the off-season in the World Championship anyway, while we were having the Indy Pro. He performed really well in that Winter Championship in the season. I think he was 5th by the end of it, but now has been brought straight up to the World Championship after winning Academy last season, and here he is. He's maybe underperformed a little bit from what I was expecting at the start of the season, but he's really getting into it now, and over the last few weeks he has been really pushing Michi Hoyer, to be quite honest, which is a big surprise.
Yeah, look at this now. I don't know if Michi Hoyer is going to return to the race team once Dennis Jordan returns to pit lane. I think that's actually going to head the way of Damian Scravron, who is really close to the rear end of Michi Hoyer. He's going to look to the inside of the Parabolica. It would be a late move to try it on your teammate from there. It's not the ideal position to make a move. You really want to do it in the DRS zone down into the Rectifilio. But Scavron, who has been fantastic in that qualifying session, qualified just a 10th off of pole, is now trying to take over what will be second position in the race, and what will eventually be the net race lead. DRS being used here, and Michi Hoyer is surely not going to fight his teammate. And Damian Scavron heads up into second position, but he's driven it in way too deep, straight over the chicane. What does Michi Hoyer do now? Does he still keep his foot in and come back through? I think Scavron might be able to still just easily hang on into the Rodger.
Yeah, and Siebel should be able to get through here on Spork if he's quick enough. Spork makes sure to use a bit of push to pass there to make sure that Siebel doesn't do that. He's just holding back his championship rival just a little bit here, trying to make sure that he doesn't win this race, because that would really be damaging to Spork's championship aspirations. Through the 2 Lesmos they go now, and Spork is going to fight this one a little bit harder than he did against Scravron and Hoyer.
Of course, as you're saying, these two championship rivals, the top 2 in the championship, and this should be a fairly easy move now from Alex Siebel, who's to the outside of Colin Spork. Colin Spork drops back in line. The Unicorns of Love driver, the championship leader, almost into the rear end of Alex Siebel then. God, that would have been a costly mistake and a cheeky bit of drama here at the Italian Grand Prix. But either way, Alex Siebel is up into 4th. So for Oracle Rebel Racing eSports and Burst eSports, they are running 1st through 4th at the moment. Our race leader being Dennis Jordan, who we do believe is committing to a one-stop strategy this afternoon. He's got a 4.8 second lead at the moment, and if he wants to make it, basically what we're talking about is it being a 33-lap run that he'd need to do at the start of the race before moving on to a 20-lap soft tyre stint to end the race, which means he still needs to go another 6 laps.
But he's doing really, really well, I've got to say. 4 seconds to a Scravron who's on new soft tyres at this stage, absolutely hammering it. Jordan is on very old tyres, skating around, and at the moment, Jordan is going to get... Oh, it's like Keersmakers is off the road somewhere, and DNF from this race, I'm afraid. But, yes, Jordan... He's in a good place. He's certainly not in a place like Colin Spork, who is struggling at this stage. Is this Edge eSports on Edge eSports? Doesn't look like it.
Yeah,
let's see what happens here.
That was
no!
Keersmakers made the double pass there into the final corner. You can see as they're all just kind of a bit slow on the left-hand side. He thought, okay, I'll get both of these then. Thank you very much. Danny Van Den Eet says, well, that was a bit of a move. And then gets it just on that grate, that sort of guttering around the parabolic of the left-hand tyres, and boom, it just went, and they went one way. One went one way, one went the other. Jake Dennehan went to the left, Danny Van Der Neat went to the Danny Van Der Neat went to the left. Jake Dennehan went to the right, and they somehow both managed to avoid.
Yeah, I thought there was going to be some Edge eSports drama there. Not that there would have been much drama from that, but they would have come into contact very nearly. As Jan Vosnitzer makes his way through on Colin Sport, both of these two affiliated with NetRex, of course, and so will not be fighting each other too hard at all. Colin Sport has got to be worried about where he's going to finish in this race, though, because he's doing the one stop, but he's not doing it nearly as well as Dennis Jordan is. He'll be coming out, well, if he were to pit now, I reckon he'd be out around Noah Roivers, who's also made 2 stops in this race already.
Yeah, I think it might be. It's kind of hard to tell as to where, because obviously he's still got to go out for another 6, basically a 6 laps, which will be more time that he's losing hand over fist. And with Noah Roivers making an early stop, he's on the soft. He said he's already made 2 stops, so Noah Roivers is actually going for a 3-stop race up. And did think that first pit stop he made was very, very early, and so looking for a 3-stop race at a circuit where we thought the 1 stop was the favoured strategy. So, I mean, it always delivers here in the World Championship with just crazy strategy ideas. Skovron is dragging Michi Hoyer along.
Yeah, he did nearly as long on that soft tyre than he did on the first mediums. I think, why on earth did he come in so early? Unless there's some sort of damage and incident we didn't see. But, I mean, yeah, but I guess that's the only reason. It's not scheduled, surely, from Roivers. Because that's
we
weird.
Have flat spots on
yes.
RS2, so we could have locked up significantly and thought, actually, I need to get off these tyres.
That is true. But that's what I mean, like unscheduled pit stop at some point for some reason. It does seem a little bit weird, but either way, he's just trying to make the best of it, and he's still going to be knocking on the door of a top 10 by the end of today.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what is going to happen. We've only had 1 retirement of the 18 starters of this race. Ivan Leonov is a lap down, and everyone else is still going strong. Dennis Jordan knows there's a pit stop, but finally Viktor Ivanov comes into the pit lane. Has Ivanov pitted yet?
I don't think he has, no. That's the soft tyres on for him now. He just could not take those mediums any longer. That's an even longer soft tyre stint, nearly 25 laps there.
Yeah, Kaz Rietveld on the pit wall for the Unicorns of Love. So a little bit of an issue there for Viktor Ivanov, who'll come into the pit lane. Still, by the way, really good lap times coming in from Dennis Jordan. He's about a second slower than the pair closing in on him. But still, considering that he's been on these tyres since the very start of the races, it's a little bit tight here between a couple of the NetRex drivers. NetRex P1 Sim of Noah Roivers and the NetRex Grand Prix driver of Danny Van Der Neat switching for positions. And it's, of course, Roivers up inside the top 10 once more. But these two closing in, I think that Skovron might have seen the best side of these soft tyres, because Michi Hoyer was just dropping back to around about a second to the end of the DRS window at 7/10, and he started to claw his way back in. So I think this is starting to favour Michi Hoyer ever so slightly in this battle for second now.
Yeah, quite possibly, and the DRS is in full effect now. Will there be a move into turn number 1? Oh, he thought about it, but he didn't go for it in the end. Skovron will be allowed to keep that second place for now. I think Dennis Jordan might just be able to do a little bit of a job here for Alex Siebel as well. I'm not entirely sure if he's going to think more about his own race and just letting these two go because that's what's most efficient for everybody, or whether he's going to try and slow up the Burst eSport cars into the back of Siebel so that Siebel can maybe get as many points as possible out of this race as Colin Sport continues to lose points and lose time. Jonas Braxtor is the latest driver to get through.
Still reckoning it's around about 3 laps before we'll see Dennis Jordan into the pit lane. He's back into the low 23s though. The consistency from Dennis Jordan this afternoon has been absolutely superb in the opening half of this race. Definitely aiming for that one-stop strategy. His best lap of the race was a 23.1. His last lap that he just completed, the 29th lap on these tyres, was a 23.284. Basically within a tenth and a half of his personal best. He does have to worry though about those two that are clawing their way down into this group. We're expecting him to pit on lap 33 of the running here in this Italian Grand Prix. So we've still got a fair way to go. I think he will relinquish the lead to Daniel Skovron, but he'll try, like you say, try and work just a little bit to try and slow the two behind down just a touch, just to try and let Alex Siebel close in.
Yeah, it's certainly, yeah. Oh, well, he's already done that a little bit, you could say. And he will be keeping them behind for another lap. He's only got 2 laps to go until his pit stop here, Jordan. So he might fancy his chances in keeping them behind until then getting into the pit lane, then undercutting them and coming out in the lead again and trying to win this race from the front. But it's been an unbelievable drive from Jordan so far. One of only 2 drivers to attempt the 2-stop. And look at how much further ahead he is of Colin Spork. he has done wonderfully on those medium tyres. Not that Spork has done a bad job particularly, but it certainly hasn't worked out for him maybe in the way he'd hoped, as Jordan goes wide and Scrovron was not going to need a second invitation to go straight through.
Whilst we're talking of how good Dennis Jordan was doing, just makes a critical error there, and will relinquishingly he'll not have DRS because Scovron was in the DRS range when he crossed over the, it was at the end, or between rather the two Lesmos where that DRS detection point is, but still Dennis Jordan was able to keep up. So we'll see how long he could do so, but I think Michi Hoyer will be knocking at the door to try and make a move fairly soon. He's about a tenth and a half off the rear end, so might make a move into the Parabolica, will the German. Certainly looks down the inside, German on German action, and Dennis Jordan wisely does not fight it. He thinks, actually, Michi, get on with it, mate. You get past. I'll try and hang on to the slipstream a little bit. I'll try and not lose too much time. And you're absolutely right. Between the two one-stoppers, Dennis Jordan versus Colin Spork in the one-stop strategy, the fact that there is 10 seconds between the two of them. That is Colin Spork versus the championship leader, both running the same strategy. Absolutely incredible pace from Dennis Jordan right now.
Yeah, it really is. As Alex Siebel gets onto the back of this train as well, Jordan will be hoping that he can maybe be a bit of a man in the middle for that one, as Jan Voznitz coming under pressure from Jonas Brakstok. He got undercut in the first round of pit stops, dropped down to 6th position, still in search of that famous World Championship victory, which he's craving at this stage, but cannot. Doesn't look like it's going to be for him today. Could well see a new World Championship to the list, though, in the form of Demian Scrovron. He's got as good a chance as he's ever had.
Yeah. Absolutely, and he's had the pace here. That's the thing. It's not as if it's just sort of like it's randomly
not been chaos, has it?
Yeah, exactly. He qualified in 3rd with a 10th off of pole. The Burst eSports and Red Bull Racing eSports have been very, very quick around this Monza circuit. It seems to match them very nicely, and they are running brilliantly right now. Dennis Jordan is able to keep himself, I think, within the DRS window once they depart the Parabolica. It'll be quite tight. Obviously, it has to be within 0.7 of a second, but he's doing the important thing, just trying to hang on to the two ahead, just to try and give himself the best opportunity. He heads on to the 33rd lap. He's actually coming into the pit lane lap earlier than we were expecting. Dennis Jordan has running a one-stop strategy here this afternoon, has come into the pit lane finally after 32 laps of running.
Yeah, and he'll have to do another 21 on these soft compound tyres, which is a stretch within itself as well. Now, will he come out in nice clean air? It looks like he will, as Colin Spork has also come into the pit lane. It's going to be lovely clean air for Dennis Jordan. He knew that Noah Roivers was coming. You can see him in the background. If he'd left it one more lap, he might have been behind Roivers. So he's decided to come in maybe a lap earlier than he could have done, just to get out in front of Roivers. Whether that was intentional or not, it's worked out beautifully because he's got nice clean air, and surely he'll be out in the race lead when this shakes out.
But it's just whether he can hang on to it, because he's obviously going to have worn tyres. It's going to be a thrilling end to this race. That we do know. It's going to be very, very close indeed. This is the kind of thing. Oh, well, there's a critical error from Dennis Jordan. So he's lost out a whole heap of time there coming through the Rodger. That'll have been a second and a half already gone. It will have to claw his way back. He'll still have the grip to do so. He'll still have the pace to do so. But that is potentially a second and a half he'll be ruining at the end of the race. He's got Noah Roivers closing in. Noah Roivers has been behind. He's been setting fastest laps recently, of course, because he's gone onto these soft stops. He's on a 3-stop strategy. The question is, though, will Dennis Jordan go out there and set a fastest lap? I kind of think not. I think he has to be a little bit more patient these times. He can't afford to just go full out. Michi Hoyer is into the pit lane, onto the softs as well, at a very similar time to Dennis Jordan. I think he might actually hang on for the position courtesy of that mistake from Dennis Jordan.
Yeah, I think he will, and he's just covering off Jordan at this stage. He could have gone longer on those mediums there, but he just wants to make sure he's out in front of his Red Bull rival. And let's see, there is Michi Hoyer. He's not only going to be in front, but by a little bit of time as well. He will be able to grab the slipstream and DRS rule Jordan. The two of them will run together, but it's going to be a fight from here and in. I thought Dennis Jordan was going to be hoping that he would come out in the lead there and try and defend from the front, but that is not going to be the case anymore.
And like I say, it's that mistake. It is that critical error. I think he lost, like I say, but around a second and a half, which is, oddly enough, about the gap. So, yeah, not a great moment there from Dennis Jordan. Maybe it was a commentator's curse. Maybe we were bigging him up a little bit too much, even though I don't believe in the commentator's curse. It was, as I put it so lovely occasionally, bad driving. It was just an error from Dennis Jordan that has cost him potentially a little bit this afternoon. But either way, Alex Siebel and Damian Scovron still might have their part to play. Does Scovron come into the pit lane? Does Alex Siebel come into the pit lane to try and join them on strategy, to try and attack them on the same thing? The answer to that question is no. They are going their own way.
Yeah, Burst Esport and Red Bull Racing Esports just splitting the strategy almost with how long you're going on the tyres. So Hoyer's going to come out here of this all in the lead. Jordan's going to be second. Then it's going to be Scrovron and then Siebel. But what are the positions going to be by the end is another question. Basically, the four of them are going to have to fight it out between themselves on the road. And that's exactly how we like to see it. It's been a very interesting race. It's been bubbling up. And much like the Matsusaka race we saw last time out, it's set for a very fast and exciting finish as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's got to worry about Colin Spork, who's very close now, and he's going straight to the inside. And so Spork, the driver that started this Grand Prix in 9th position, returns to 9th position. But of course, on the soft tyres, looking to get to the end of the race, looking to march his way forward. We'll take a look on the replay as to what's happened to Ivan Leonov coming up towards the Rodger in the Netrex Grand Prix car. A little bit of a moment on the right-hand side of the circuit heading into it. Why did he skip there? Was it just him trying to get out? I think it was just blue flag, him trying to get out of the way. So never mind, we won't panic too much. Obviously, he is a lap down at the moment. I wasn't sure if it was brake failure or not.
We've seen some of that in this season indeed, earlier on. Remember back to Noah Roivers, who's currently 7th in this race at the moment. But yeah, Spork and Vosnica out there at the moment. These two are both going to the end from here. Denahan is not. So this is going to be the battle for 8th, I think. But Spork is going to be, well, I say he's going to be struggling on tyres later on. He won't be really in terms of getting past by Vosnica, but he might be he might not be able to move forward any further, is what I'm trying to say, because the gap to Roivers will be fairly large.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing on strategy. It's what we love about this is that the gap. It's easy for us to sit here and be like, the gap there is going to be massive, the gap there is going to be tiny, but then, you know, obviously running your own strategy, kind of dragging yourself back into the mix, just using that fresh tyres, sometimes not burning them out if you can kind of have a long stint like what Dennis Jordan did. Like, Dennis Jordan losing out that second and a half, right? Sure, that's a bad thing, but look at how well he kept those mediums in. He kept them in much better than, say, for example, Mitchy Hoy did with the soft tyres earlier on in the race. And so with that, I'd almost say that maybe Dennis Jordan has got the better tyre saving around here, the better tyre strategy, so I still wouldn't rule him out. It's one of those things with a race like this where it is so open, is that it's not just a simple 1+1 do this on strategy and it equals victory. It's a lot more complex than that. It's a lot more dynamic in the race, and so you as a driver have so much to do when it comes to looking after the tyres, maybe saving a little bit of fuel. Maybe you've underfueled the car at the start of the race. Of course, there's no refueling in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. As Damien Scovron comes into the pit lane, Alex Siebel will take over the race lead. There's no refueling, and so maybe you've underfueled the car a little bit earlier on in the race so that you can maybe save a little bit of fuel, use the slipstream to your advantage. Maybe you didn't get as much slipstream, you have to save fuel by yourself. It's very, very complex, very dynamic.
This was quite complex as well, going into the pit lane. This was quite a big squeeze. There we go, just about getting it.
I think it was all right.
It looks like it was all right. It looked like he sped, though, to me at the time.
No, I think our broadcast director is just trying to make a lot of drama out of it.
I
think it was fine.
I agreed, actually. He did get a penalty. He did get a
Maybe
penalty. So he was speeding on pit lane, and surely that now is going to be applied after the race, I guess.
No. He'll have to serve a drive-through penalty. He will have to serve a drive-through penalty with Damien Scovron. It's one of those issues. It's of pit lane entries. I mean, I'm pretty harsh with pit lane entries, mostly from the fact of them being dangerous. From some of them, like for example, Austria, Red Bull Ring. That pit lane is just horrible. This one is horrible from a very different reason. There is very little reference on the way in. It is very tricky and it's a slow pit lane. It is such a hard one to get down to speed on. It's perfectly safe. It's just very irritating and it's so hard to get right. And unfortunately just overdid it. Alex Siebel not going to come into the pit lane as the driver who started this one from pole position will continue leading.
There's no way he's going to the end of the race from here, but he will be coming out in the, fourth position? Well, just behind Scrovron anyway. And he's got to be careful about Noah Roivers there. I know Roivers is going to be into the pit lane, but even so, he does have to be careful. As Sander Callas gets out the way of Hoyer and Jordan by making his final pit stop of the day. There he goes. Making that stop now. As Colin Spork will also gain a position to get back up into 6th position. But where will he be by the end? Well, Vosnik is going to give him a hard time. So is Jonas Braxock. But I think those are the only two drivers who might really overtake him in this one. I think he's going to make a decent job out of a difficult situation today.
Yeah, and that's what makes you a champion in a sense. On the same as what we had with Colin Sport back in the Japanese Grand Prix at Matsusaka. The idea that you can have a bad qualifying, maybe even a bad start to the race, and yet still you make the most of it. You still work your way inside the top 5 onto the podium, maybe even into a race win. That is what makes you a champion, especially in how the point scores work. In the series. And I know that Ewan O'Leary just rolled his eyes because he knows that I love talking about the points. Is that with it being a champion like this, it's all about consistency. It's not just about winning each weekend or having the odd win. It's about being very, very consistent over the championship. And so if you've started in 9th, if you can get yourself in the top 5, you don't hemorrhage that many points as Alex Siebel brings his way onto pit lane.
Yes, Colin Sport would lose nearly half of his championship lead, but anyway.
But that's if he finishes in 6th and Alex Siebel wins.
Yeah, which Alex Siebel might well do, to be honest.
And I don't think Colin Sport will finish in 6th.
I do, actually. So there we are.
Because Noah Roivers has got to pit as well.
Yeah, I understand that. Meanwhile, side by side, speaking of Noah Roivers, there he is. Nearly getting through on Alex Siebel, but will not do that. So 15 laps to go as we run right now. Roivers will pit, so Sport will be up to 5th, but I think he's going to fall away till the end. I think I can see Vosdica and I can see Bragchuk getting through at the very least. Callis might have a sniff as well. I don't know about Roivers, how quick he's going to be in the final stint in the race. I don't think this is as simple as you're making out.
No, well, I'm not making it out to be simple.
No, but I do think his championship lead's going to be halved or more.
I don't know. I think it's easy to say. Maybe. I'm all for it when it comes to the channel. Yeah, to be nice and close. So, from an entertainment point of view, I want to come down to the wire. But for Colin Sport, knowing the talent that he is, also, and this is something which is a topic that is a bit of an and in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. Directly behind is Jan Wojnitzer, who is sort of his teammate. Now, there are rules against them working together, but if Jan Wojnitzer never looks, is it really against the rules? It's not team orders. It's not anything like that. But you've essentially got like a little bit of cushioning on the rear end. And if they are in a team, if they are going to work it together, if they are going to look out for Colin Sport in his champion challenge, maybe they do just be like, actually, just don't go for it.
Possibly. By the way, a bit having it halved is quite extreme. It's not going to be that bad for Colin Sport, but he is going to lose some points today. We'll put it that way.
It's like 7, isn't it?
Yeah. So there we are. Jan Vosdica, No, Roivers comes into the pit lane as well. He's going to actually be around Ivanov, but obviously he'll be very quick towards the end. Ivanov will actually get through into that 9th position, but Roivers will surely get back through on him pretty shortly. Roivers is sort of distantly involved in this championship fight, but not really anymore. He is 66 points away coming into today and will lose some more after this race is done here. So it really is a 2-horse race once again. Siebel versus Spork, but Alex Siebel, for my money, absolutely has to probably win this race, really, to really make use of Spork being a bit down the order.
And maybe he'll halve the points tally.
I doubt that.
Exactly, because the points aren't aggressive enough. But no, we won't go on to that. We'll have a nice little argument post broadcast. But like I say, it does require Colin Spork to maybe drop back a couple of positions for Alex Siebel to march his way up to the race lead. Two things which will be quite difficult. Jan Wojnitzer is still not passing Colin Spork. Whether he'll give it a go at some point soon will remain to be seen as we head on to 13 laps to go. And it is Michi Hoyer leading from a second over Dennis Jordan. Skovron set the fastest lap of the race a couple of laps ago. It's instantly been beaten by Alex Siebel on a 20.9. Absolutely flying. And Dennis Jordan has had a track limits warning, so he's had another off. I know that Daniel Skovron's had one. Michi Hoyer, I believe, has had 2. Alex Siebel, I think, is on 0 at the moment. He's been very much within the track limits as far as I'm aware.
You should probably start using some of them. if you
start
like.
ticking them off.
Just start ticking them off, yeah, just to make use of it. Talking about this earlier, yeah, exactly. Professional foul. There from Alex Siebel. I'm sure he won't do that, actually. It's not really in his nature to do it. But
sometimes you've got to give it a go. I know Scott McLaughlin, anyone who remembers back to like 2014 and V8 Supercars.
Clipsal 500.
It was the Clipsal 500. It was at Adelaide. It was in the second race. He's defending from Jamie Whincup, and the broadcast is just like, skip the chicane. He's got another cut, so he's going to skip the chicane. And he was just sat there thinking, this is ridiculous.
No, I fully agree with him, to be honest. But if it's within the rules to do it, then why are you not doing it? In my opinion. In a sporting sense, anyway. It's Damian Scrobron comes in to serve his drive-through penalty. There we are. I forgot about that, but he's got in now, and will be making that drive-through. Could be another position for Colin Spork here, who's this race is really starting to fall into his lap a little bit. He will make up that position and go into 4th position. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That was down at Adelaide back in the day. What a great race that was, by the way.
Volvo versus Holden.
Oh dear.
What a year. What a season.
I know, yeah, 2014 was a great year.
Absolutely, it's my first year watching
it. Supercars. I've watched it retrospectively because I wasn't into V8 Supercars at the time, but yeah, it was
you were born.
a great year. I was not 4 years old, thanks Cam, but I was watching other motorsport, we'll say.
Just Formula 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
I was getting bored of it. That's why I stopped, but there we are.
Well, either way, focusing on this race. So Scotland post pit stop has come out, obviously drive-through has come out in 7th position behind Brackshot, behind Wojnitzer, who spookily has still not passed Colin Spork. Wonder why. But Colin Spork is about 10 seconds off the rear end of Alex Siebel, and I don't think there will be a switch here. The question will come from if Janis Brackshot is able to close in. The answer is kind of. He's closing about 3/10 a lap. On these two, so might well be quite close late in the race to potentially try something on Jan Wojnitzer, and maybe that might force him to try and make a move. Colin Spork, he might well be coming. Nope, he's just holding a tight line out of the parabolic. Never mind. But I wonder if Daniel Scovron might actually be close enough to try something late in the race. He's only about a couple of steps back. He's actually just lost the position to Sandar Callis, so never mind on that.
Oh yeah, where has Scovron gone? I can't see him on the order anymore.
He's been DQ'd.
Oh my goodness, he's been DQ'd. What on earth was that about?
Because he's sped in pit lane. There is a thing that if you speed in pit lane, sometimes you can get it as a stop go, depending on how aggressively you've sped. And he might not have served the stop and go portion of the penalty, and so hasn't been served. What a terrible day for Burst Eastman. When they were running 1 and 2, they were looking on for potentially a double podium this afternoon. Oh, how the turntables turn.
It's not over yet, to be fair. Mitty Hoyer is still leading this race. I know he's got pressure from Dennis Jordan, and he'll probably have pressure from Alex Siebel a little bit in the last 3 laps especially. But yeah, you're right. It's not been a great day for Burst Eastman in what has not been a great season for them, I'm afraid. I was really hoping for Scrovon to finally do well in the World Championship and finally live up to the expectations. I know he did get that podium back at Spa, which seems a long time ago already, but he hasn't really been able to repeat that podium, which I thought he would have done here today.
I mean, this is the whole thing with these two. Like Wojnitzer, this is a painful position for Wojnitzer to be in, right? I know, because I've done this as a driver, where you're there, you're essentially, sister teams and stuff. Your teammate essentially is battling for the championship, and you kind of sit there. Now, there are rules against how they fight in team orders and stuff between teams, and they know that better than anyone do, NetRex, because they've come a cropper to it, and I have fundamentally disagreed with it back at the opening round at San Marino, where they received some penalties for colluding between the two teams. This is a little bit of a trickier one to police. It's why the rule shouldn't exist. Because the two drivers there are part of 2 different teams. How do you police whether they're going to fight? Because they might just be mates that just aren't going to fight with each other. Now for Wojnitzer, he's not going to fight with Colin Spork. There's no real need to. It's why there kind of shouldn't be a rule there. Whilst I'd love to see them fight, for Wojnitzer, there's nothing to gain from him making that pass. There is everything to lose in the challenge for Colin Spork, and that is where the attention is obviously going to be from the squad as a whole.
It's one of those arguments that will never end, I'm afraid. So there'll be people saying that it should be policed because obviously you don't want half the grid being taken up by one team, but also other people who don't want it policed, of course, because it's too difficult. So it's never going to end, and I don't get involved with arguments that never end because
it's impossible to police.
It does. I find it difficult to create an opinion, if I'm honest, because there's no logical way of putting an end to this problem, so I just don't bother. So anyway, these two certainly, though, this is something I can understand. Mitty Hoyer and Dennis Jordan hopefully going to have a battle it out for this race win. I have a feeling, and Alex Siebel possibly getting involved as well. Nearly 4 seconds back to him. Is he closing in quickly enough though?
No, he did a 21.3 on the previous lap to play a 21.2 and a 21.6. Mitchy Hoyer 21.6, and then Dennis Jordan a 21.2. So no is the answer. I don't think Alex Siebel is closing in fast enough. It's just whether Dennis Jordan rather is overdoing his tyre potentially too much. Same with Mitchy Hoyer. Of course, they've been on them for longer than Alex Siebel has. This is Dennis Jordan getting quite close, coming into the final corner, into the parabolica as we head to the final portion of this race. Now, whilst these two have practiced, have worked together behind the scenes coming into this race, they are battling for their own teams, for their own drivers in this race right now. And Dennis Jordan, he's not going to wait. He's not going to wait in second position. He is going straight for the race lead. And Dennis Jordan down the inside to take over the race lead. He now leads heading into the final portion here at Monza. What is Mitchy Hoyer going to do? And if they do battle it out, that is Alex Siebel's opportunity. Remember how I said that he hadn't cut yet, by the way? He just had his last lap removed, meaning that he did exceed track limits. Mitchy Hoyer also did, so I think he's getting very painfully close to receiving a penalty.
Yeah, he'll have to be very careful about that, and he'll have to try and serve it correctly as well, by the looks of it. So, yeah, there's something to keep an eye on for Mitchy Hoyer as he tries to get that first race win for over a year in the Formula SimRacing World Championship. Don't think he won the race before that famous Netherlands Grand Prix at Zandvoort, where he went spectacularly into the crowd. I can't remember what the race before was. That Nürburgring, I think it was.
Where he won from third.
Yeah, he won from third. Brackshot got the pole, but couldn't yet again missed out on the race
Alex
win
Siebel
just
killed
slightly.
him.
I remember something about that. Although I remember disagreeing with you about that.
I'm pretty sure it was Alex Siebel that killed Janis Brackshaw. But the thing was, Mitchy Hoyer had already taken over the lead by that point. He just waited in third basically for the entirety of the race and then just undercut them all in the final pit stop and was like, see you lads.
Yeah, Siebel and Simic four-stop that race, didn't they? I'm pretty sure that was the first emergence of the four-stop, or maybe it wasn't.
It was certainly Simic's four-stop.
Simic, yeah, sorry, yeah.
I think Siebel might have done, but Siebel finished in second on that day, but then had the two-place penalty drop into fourth.
This is like live commentary memory test at the moment. Should have probably written this stuff down earlier, but anyway. These two are fighting back at the front once again. It is great to see. I know we've said it a lot of times already in this broadcast, but it is great to see Mitchy Hoyer fighting back at the front once again. And unfortunately, won't have a run at the World Championship in 2022, but maybe next year will be his year.
Oh, wow, I mean, we've said that for a couple of years back to back. Of course, Dennis Jordan has won this year. Alex Siebel has won this year. Colin Spork has won a few times this year, 4. Mitchy Hoyer is still waiting for his first win. And for me, you know me, I love myself a bit of Dennis Jordan. I love myself a bit of Alex Siebel. But I'd love to see Mitchy Hoyer on the top step once again. It'd feel like such a positive story considering the difficulties that he's faced in 2022 so far. And a great recovery effort. And I think it would also be his latest win in a Formula SimRacing World Championship because he won the 3 on the bounce at the start of 2021. He won the opening race of 2020. And those are his wins. He hasn't won later in the season than the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's all due to the momentum, isn't it? And he's starting to build a bit now. With that, he could get that podium a little bit earlier on in the season. Now he's trying to build a little bit more as he closes into the first corner again with Dennis Jordan, but decides not to go for it. Alex Siebel now less than just over 2 seconds adrift. Only 6 laps to go, though. He's running out of time.
Bit of kicker oversteer as well from Alex Siebel. I think Siebel will be a part of that battle. It's just by how close Dennis Jordan and Mitchy Hoyer are. If they were in single file, if Dennis Jordan had sat behind Mitchy Hoyer until the very last lap of the race, which would have been a very risky strategy, by the way, but if he'd have done that, I think then Alex Siebel actually wouldn't have been able to close in. But the fact they've battled a couple of times, the fact that Dennis Jordan is having his mirrors filled by Mitchy Hoyer, this is the opportunity that Alex Siebel needed to close in. But as much as he's on the freshest of the tyres of the top 3, I don't think tyres are going to play into it in this. I don't think it's the age of the tyre that's going to play into it. I think they're all very, very similar on speed. It's going to be the slipstream, the DRS, and the push to pass that is going to play its major factor, not the tyres. Yeah,
who saved that push to pass is the real thing here, because obviously you've got a limited amount of seconds to use. I think it's 100, isn't it, throughout a race that you can use. So you've got to manage that throughout, and especially at a track like this where it's so easy to drain your push to pass really, really quickly. You've got to be very, very careful on it and use that DRS efficiently to make moves earlier on in the race. But now it is all down to the drivers against themselves. Side by side over the line again. 5 laps to go. Mitchy Hoyer looks like he wants to retake the lead of the Italian Grand Prix, and he will do that. Dennis Jordan won't really fight him on the outside line.
But look at how much Alex Siebel closed in there. He is only a second now off the rear end. Big moment there for Michi Hoyer. And this could be a moment for Dennis Jordan to come straight back through. We head round Curva Grande. He's right in the rear and he didn't know which way he wanted to go. And Dennis Jordan's had to take to the outside. He's lost all of his momentum, but he's still back in the slipstream of Michi Hoyer. He looks to the outside coming down to the Rodger. He's going to commit onto the brakes. There's very little between the two of them. And Michi Hoyer is able to hang on as they head their way through the Rodger. And looming, waiting in the background, your winner of the Japanese Grand Prix, looking for technically back-to-back victories in the Formula SimRacing World Championship for the very first time in his career. Alex Siebel is knocking at the door.
Yeah, somewhat surprisingly, he's only got 2 wins in the World Championship, so adding a third would be of great help to him, and he'll be very glad about it as well, with the championship situation in the way that it is. But through Ascari we go with 4 laps to go at the line. This is going to be a barnstorming finish between the 3 of them. I know we got a finish similar to this at Matsusaka, but it is a lot easier to overtake around here. This fight for the win is going to go on for a lot longer as well. We are set for an enthralling finish here.
Yeah, 4 laps left to go now. What does Dennis Jordan do? That's the kind of the question. If he feels that his teammate's in better position, does he sidestep to try and assist Alex Siebel here, or is he focused on his own aspirations for this race victory? Well, we'll find out now, because here he comes. Looks straight to the inside of Michi Hoyer, doesn't commit to it. The 3 of them separated by half a second, hitting the apex at the first corner. There's nothing between them, and Alex Siebel is right there. What would you do, Ewan, if you were in Dennis's point of view, if you're in Dennis Jordan's seat right now? Do you relinquish that second position, or do you just go full out on attack?
I think he's going full out on attack. Outside line into the Della Roggia chicane again, but not able to make that move stick once more. So this battle for first about to get a lot more interesting here with the 3 of them there. It's very difficult to know, isn't it, really, because it's all about where you want to be going on to that final lap. I can see these 3 running nose to tail over the line for the penultimate time in this race. So where do you want to be in that train? Do you want to be watching on from behind in third? Do you want to be defending from the front in first? Do you want to be being the aggressor there in second position, using that slipstream as Dennis Jordan is right now? It all depends where you want to be heading on to that final lap.
I'd want to be second. I would want to be second. I don't think the slipstream and the push to pass is powerful enough from third to get you alongside the race leader. I'd want to be in second, using the DRS, using the push to pass, save it up for that final run down into the Rettifilio, and boom, use it up. It is going to be a tricky run as pulling it all the way over to the right-hand side. This is Alex Siebel closing in on Dennis Jordan. DRS is going to be wide open for Alex Siebel, but not open for Dennis Jordan. And so Alex Siebel easily is going to pass his teammate. That one obviously wasn't fought, was coordinated between the two, and Alex Siebel will take over that all-important second position heading on to the third lap to go.
Yeah, don't forget, Siebel's got the freshest tyres out of the 3 of them, so that might just come into a slight bit of a factor here, as Colin Spork has been overtaken by Jan Vosnitzer on the last lap, by the way. He's now under pressure as well from Janis Brakstok and Sandor Callas, so it will be nervous moments for him as he tries to nurse those tyres through the final 3 laps.
This is the kind of thing, so Jan Vosnitzer was going to sit behind Colin Sport for quite a while, but the moment that Janis Brakstok closes in, the moment that Sandor Callas closes in, that's where the problems lie, and that's where it's kind of like, right, I'm sorry, mate, I've tried helping out as much as possible, but see ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. And here is Alex Siebel wanting to be himself, because he's going for the race lead, coming up towards Ascari, and the number 13 for Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports commits onto the brakes, and Michi Hoyer will have to settle for second position at the moment, because Alex Siebel, your Japanese Grand Prix winner, has taken over the race lead.
Unorthodox to make it into Ascari there, but he's gone for it anyway, as Michi Hoyer decides to really go for it, a parabolica quite possibly. It really is getting aggressive now as we go for 2 laps to go at the line here. We really are winding down now, and Jordan's going to use a bit of push to pass here. Michi Hoyer has to respond. Siebel with a fantastic final corner there, and a bit of weaving around as Jordan now is going to get the double slipstream. Is he going to maybe try and overtake Hoyer here? Siebel doesn't even have to defend it to turn 1.
Oh my goodness, how close was that as Michi Hoyer was just squeezing Dennis Jordan a little bit. The commitment on the brakes between these 3 as we're on to the penultimate lap of the race is absolutely fantastic. Now, if Dennis Jordan gets through, I think that's it. It's done. I think it'll be an Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports 1-2, and he's going to look for it coming into the Rodger. Michi Hoyer's going to defend the inside just ever so slightly. He commits to the brakes, a little bit of a squeeze there as well as Dennis Jordan was trying to get around the outside. Big usage of curb from Michi Hoyer. He's dropping off the background of Alex Siebel. The 3 Germans battling over for the victory here at the Italian Grand Prix. It's super tight between them. Alex Siebel's just been given a little bit of clean air. Is it out to over 7/10 of a second as they head over into the DRS zone? The answer is no. It's just been picked up by Michi Hoyer, but Dennis Jordan, he is waiting and he is hungry.
Yeah, you can absolutely see Red Bull want this 1-2 for the first time since the Malaysian Grand Prix, all the way back at the second round of this championship. Siebel, though, has just got that little tyre advantage, hasn't he? Hoyer and Jordan starting to waver a little bit now. They've been on those tyres for a long time, 21 laps each, I think, in terms of this entire race now. So they are starting to fall away on those softs, and it looks like they're going to be scrapping for second between themselves.
Final lap of the race beginning. Alex Siebel from Hoyer from Jordan. Jordan with the DRS, with the slipstream, with the push to pass as well. When here comes Dennis Jordan, going to go up in the second position. Mitchy Hoyer's going to try and hang on around the outside. He's going to really throw it into the red. Oh, and he throws it in big time, locks up the rear tyres and nearly clouts the side of the Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports of Dennis Jordan. Doesn't do so. 0.4 of a second separate them as they head out towards Curva Grande. And here's the look to the inside from Colin Spork, dragging it back from Jan Wojnitsa, who's trying to remain alongside, has to back out of it slightly. And now Janis Brakshock is knocking at the door.
Yeah, and so is Sander Callis. You can see in the ground effect car just in behind. They go around the Curva Grande, but there's not really anything you can do into here as far as Brakshock is concerned. If you're Callis, there certainly is. Oh, a big swipe down the straight there, and that was very much on the fringes of being illegal, but either way, he's made it work anyway, as Siebel only has half a second to carry through these final few corners.
DRS and push to pass both being used from Jordan and from Hoyer, who's closed back in within that DRS window. The three of them separated by a second as we head onto the backstretch up towards the Parabolica for the very last time here in the Italian Grand Prix. Alex Siebel's in a comfortable position. He's got his teammate directly behind as one final time, the 53rd lap of this proceedings, the Italian Grand Prix. It's back-to-back race victories for Alex Siebel for Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports as a second 1-2 of the season as Siebel leads across the line. Dennis Jordan split by absolutely nothing, and Mitchy Hoyer will take to the podium once again in 2022. Colin Spork will come across the line in fourth position. Then this gaggle, Wojnitsa, Brakshock and Sander Callis separated by literal tenths. It's so close across the line, but what a drive from Siebel.
Yeah, what a drive from Alex Siebel there to come through the field. Started that final stint, of course, in the fourth position in this field and ended up winning this race, winning his second race on the bounce now. The amount of momentum that he has behind him has got to be worrying if you are Colin Spork. I know his lead has only been cut by 1/3 here today. He's still got 24 points over Siebel with 3 rounds to go. It's very much still within his hands, but the momentum that the German has got to be concerning for them. And the comparative lack of momentum, the comparatively poor finish for Spork here has got to be mentioned as well. It's his first time off the podium all season long.
And to be fair, considering that we know that, again, I've said it before, Red Bull Racing or Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports and Burst eSports work together a little bit behind the scenes. For them, this will be very, very tasty indeed heading into the final 3 rounds of the season. They're really showing that they have the pace on the NetRex group that have looked so strong in 2022. And now maybe the advantage is swinging the way of Alex Siebel. I still think Colin Spork's going to be one difficult man to beat over the final 3 rounds of the season. But let's be honest here for Colin Spork. There has been one major issue that we've seen the last 2 races, which is qualifying. Qualifying has been a problem for Colin Spork. 6th, I think it was, back in the Japanese Grand Prix. 9th in qualifying here today. He's had to do recovery drives on both days. You can't win a championship when you're constantly doing recovery drives. That could be an issue that will plague him late in the season. Alex Siebel, though, will lead over the Oracle Red Bull Racing eSports 1-2 this time. It was Dennis Jordan leading it over back in Malaysia, but it's Alex Siebel today with Dennis Jordan directly behind. Mitchy Hoyer as well. On the podium, the 3 of them separated by a second. We'll catch up with those in a few moments' time. Colin Spork and Jan Wojnitsa in 4th and 5th. Janis Brakshock, Sander Callis, Noah Roivers, Victor Ivanov and Danny van der Neet will round out the top 10. Jake Dennehan in 11th position with Zolt Schuch and Robin Panzar, who wasn't able to make the progress they were expecting from him. Tom Oldermenga, who started from the final position on the grid, worked his way up into 14th. Roberto Pinataro had early issues spinning out Robin Panzar a bit earlier on in the race. Ivan Leonov ended the race with a fastest lap of the race, a 20.031. It's good stuff from him. Laurent Kiersmaker's retired, and Damien Scoville got a disqualification after he sped in the pit lane and did not successfully serve the penalty for doing so. But what a great race it was.
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, maybe not the breathless finish that we had in the Matsusaka, which really was unbelievable, but that was still a very good finish nonetheless. A great battle between 3 great drivers, and I'm sure we'll be joined by them shortly to have a bit of a chat. After, it's another great race here in FSR.
We certainly are joined by them, as we'll head to our race winner and to Alex Siebel first. Well, I mean, as much as it doesn't technically count as consecutive rounds because of how things have happened in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship of 2022, but it is back-to-back victories for you. That's going to feel pretty sweet when it comes down to chasing down Colin Spork and the championship rival. Talk us about your race.
Yeah, sure. So, well, I think the best part of today is that we could continue the good performance on Monza, which we gathered at Formula Pro earlier this year. So, it's really good to be able to continue that streak. And yeah, for my race, well, obviously qualifying was awesome. Finally a pole again. And then I saw that Michi is going for softs, and I just wanted to stay with DRS for the first laps, and I think he did a couple of mistakes, otherwise I couldn't have get his DRS, but since I got it, the race looked really well. Yeah, and then I think in the last stint, my pace wasn't that good. I expected to be a bit quicker and close the gap much earlier, but in the end it worked out. But yeah, what I wanted to say is I feel really sorry for Damian because I think he could have won today. He had at least the same pace as me. I think he was even a bit quicker, so really unfortunate with his penalty. But yeah, really happy to get a 1-2, of course, for Red Bull.
It looked, to be honest, from our point of view, that strategy was actually quite difficult around here. You know, normally people are just like, oh, it's just a one-stopper, it's just a two-stop. This looked quite difficult because it seemed like it was something which was potentially the tyre was tyre wear rather was a little bit higher than expected coming into the race. Is that how you found it, or was it actually exactly what you'd seen in practice?
No, it wasn't higher than in practice, but I knew like one stop only Dennis can drive it. I couldn't because I don't know what Dennis does to his tires, but they last forever. And I think you saw it in the end as well. I mean, he lost so much in the first stint. He was 6 or 7 seconds behind, and usually both strategies were like same pace. So he should have finished 6 seconds behind me, but obviously he didn't at all. Yeah, so but I knew I couldn't do a one stop, so I had to qualify well and push the 2-stop, and luckily it worked out in the end.
I think we should probably catch up with Dennis Jordan now. Congratulations, of course, to Alex Siebel, our race winner. But your teammate there saying, I don't know how he keeps his tyres alive. You told me before the race, Dennis, that you were going to commit 100% to a one-stop strategy. You stuck to your word. But how do you keep your tyres alive? Because you just seemed in a league of your own on that. Colin Spork tried the one-stop strategy, and you were 10 seconds ahead of him heading into the pit stop.
Well, yeah, Lewis. First of all, I'm sorry for not winning today.
I know,
but still a big shout out to all the stuff you can do in a car. That is not only saving tires. Yeah, I don't know. Like I honestly I was just driving like I was always driving the car. As we were already here in Formula Pro, I didn't really change anything. The tires just lasted. I think we have a really good setup, and that just speaks for all the work that we do behind the scenes, within Oracle Red Bull, but also our testing group. So, yeah, I didn't really have to do anything. The tires just lasted.
Now, the championship challenge that your teammate is putting on at the moment, I know obviously, I'm sure you've probably got your own fair aspirations in the title as well, at least finishing higher up in the championship the way you're presently running and battling it out to get inside the top 3 and such. But of course, Alex Siebel is battling it out for the championship. Are you trying to at least assist in that front? Is that in your head during the race, or are you just treating each race as its own? You're trying to win each race, and if your teammate's ahead of you, your teammate's ahead. If your teammate's behind, that's how it is.
I honestly I don't know the standings, but I guess that's what we are gonna do. I had many races without any points or really low points, so I'm out of it. I'm not sure how close he still is. So if we can still maybe get him to win it, then I guess that's what we are going to try in the last couple of races.
Oh, we'll keep our fingers crossed for sure. Congratulations to Dennis Jordan and to Alex Siebel to make it an Oracle Red Bull Racing 1-2. But we need to welcome someone back into the interview booth, someone who we've had a fair few times in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship, but not too many times this season. And it has been a little while since the British Grand Prix. It is Michi Hoyer back onto the podium. Looked like a super race out there, a really exciting end. Unfortunately, he came up a couple of positions short, but it did look like a lot of fun out there.
Not quite sure whether I would describe it as much fun, like especially the last 5 laps have been as frustrating as ever. On the other hand, though, like I was literally frustrated after lap 4 already on myself a bit. Like it took me too long to get into the rhythm. I knew I had to have a go on Alex in the opening stint, and then I would have needed to pull a gap. And you know, I could start the shoulda, woulda, coulda things. Like if I would have been just the 2 seconds ahead and clear instead of like having them in the draft, then Dennis would be 2 seconds further back, and he would have never actually got into my draft and overtake me and have the things happen that happened in the end. And then I feel extremely sorry for Damien. Like he was on a flyer. He was so quick. And if not for the penalty or for the issue, I actually need to find out what happened. I'm pretty sure that he would be the one for the win. But it is what it is. I think I need a night, and then I'm happy with P3. But right now I'm a bit disappointed, obviously, because I was hanging on for the win in the last 15 laps.
I will say for you as a group, it does seem as though pace has been found. The NetRex group at least seemed a little bit slower this round, and hopefully you, from your point of view, that will continue for the final 3 rounds of the season. But what are you aiming for over those final 3 races? Of course, it's not like as if we can predict the circuits that we've had done like in previous years. You're kind of a bit of a lottery in that sense. But what are your goals in those 3 races?
It's a mixture of things. Like first of all, of course, we have found some pace, which has to do with a lot of preparation that goes into the races, that goes also into the setup, as we also race this car in the Formula Pro series. And there we always learn something in every race. You take something for the next race, and then you keep developing, keep testing, keep analyzing. And just as the Oracle Red Bull guys, we at Burst Esports, we're putting in just about the same work, the same intensity of work, which is probably the reason why we're always head-to-head in any race lately. But indeed, that leads to the fact that we use the remaining season of Formula Sim Racing to further just develop the car, get it ready for Formula Pro. Like whether we're racing, I think it's Azura that made it now to the community vote. I mean, it will be a perfect opportunity for us to set up the car for the FSR race, and then just pick the setup, put it on for the Formula Pro series, and hopefully be just as good or learn something on that Sunday evening before the race. And let's see. We're just here to further develop the car. I want to at least try to win another race. I mean, for the championship, I'm out anyway. So just get the season over and done.
Well, thank you to Mitchie Hoyer, and congratulations as well to you for a well-deserved return to the podium. Dennis Jordan and Alex Siebel also joined us in the commentary booth, but we will head our way up to one Mr. Cameron Rodger to confirm exactly what Mitchie Hoyer just said.
Absolutely. It's going to be the wonderful Azure Grand Prix up next. Just a vote closed during the race as well, so that'll be happening on the 17th of July, and that's obviously going to be an interesting time for the guys who race in Challenge Formula Pro, because that's all happening within a week of each other and next to each other. So a big challenge to come for those.
Indeed, thank you to Cam Rodger and Ewan O'Leary. I mean, what a race it was! A fantastic 3-way fight for the victory. Colin Sport will still lead the championship, but just by 24 points. It wasn't exactly halved by Alex Siebel there. Sorry, mate. But second position either way. Alex Siebel is 24 points back and still closing in on that championship challenge. Noah Roivers behind with Dennis Jordan in fourth. Jan Wojnitzer inside the top 5. What a race it was.
Yeah, a fantastic race. That's 2 races in a row now where we've seen a really late pass for the win. 3 drivers in contention on this occasion, so who knows what we're going to see next week, or not next week, in a few weeks' time at the Azure Grand Prix. Very much looking forward to it. Once again, it's going to be another great World Championship race.
Yeah, obviously very, very tricky to race around these streets of the Azure Grand Prix, but we'll have to wait and see how that one's going to unfold. It's been a fantastic race here at Monza. Just 3 races left to go in the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. We hope you can join us for them on the 17th of July. From us here in the commentary booth, it's been a great evening. We'll give our thanks to, of course, our sponsors in Masita Esports, 3D Wrap and SimLab, and, of course, our broadcast partners in VCO. That is us done for round 7 of the Formula Sim Racing World Championship. From myself, Lewis McGlade, from Ewan O'Leary and Cameron Rodger behind the cameras this evening, we wish you a very warm goodbye.
Hello, everybody.